My co-founder Ed had been thinking about starting a new university already back in 2012. I met this crazy man in 2017, and then together we decided to start Alliance. And now we're here, trying to help people figure out how to solve complex, important problems, such as homelessness, knife crime, climate change, what are we going to do with the energy consumption that we're all using too much energy of, etc. So we're a fully fledged university. We're regulated by the Office of Students. We live in a world that is connected. Everything is part of a system, whether it's the ecosystem of climate or whether it's the ecosystem of energy companies. So we take the sort of outside-in perspective on our MBA, which is very different. It's not about making as much toothpaste as you can. It's more about looking at more complex issues that matters to all of us in society. And I guess one more thing to say about LIS, we're completely independent. So we started from scratch, a blank sheet of paper, which means we can be quite a lot different than other universities. So there is a reason why we have this campus. So this part of London is there's quite a lot of innovation in education over the years. So here was the first office of the Salvation Army. It obviously educated a lot of people, so we can see that over here.
Okay, so this is Samuel Hayakawa, who was a US Senator, but also a professor of English. And he wrote this book, pictured on the right, Language in Thought and Action in the 1930s. And in that same book, he introduced a concept which some of you might be familiar with, called the abstraction ladder. The abstraction ladder is something that we find really useful at LIS because it invites us to, or it draws attention to the way that language operates. So, just shout out, what is this? Highland cow. Interesting level of specificity. Any other things we might describe this picture as? Mammal, yeah. Anything else? Steak. Interesting disciplinary perspective, yeah. Exactly. I did promise we would talk about cows. So this is one such cow. And for our purposes today, looking at Hayagawa's ladder of abstraction, this cow is called Bessie. So Hayagawa used this ladder of abstraction basically to help us to separate out the level of things that we can see and touch, like Bessie, the cow, to cow, the level of things that we can all talk about and agree upon. And then moving up the chain, so looking at assets, wealth, those kind of levels of abstraction, we need some kind of specialist understanding or terminology to access those. I hope what the introduction to the abstraction ladder does is give you a sense that if we move up and down the abstraction ladder quite freely, what that can do is get us closer to a shared language, a shared understanding, and better ground for collaboration. I would love you each individually to grab one post-it note and write down your definition of innovation. And then on the second post-it note, I'd love you to describe what innovation looks like to you in your sector or your specialism. Any other definitions of innovation? Yes, please.
Creation of new value, whatever the metric of value is.
Nice, thank you. Yeah.
The process of making ideas useful.
The process of making ideas useful. Nice and succinct, thank you. Moving to the second question, what does innovation look like in your sector or specialism?
So in my sector, innovation can be product, but it can also be process or in the way we communicate.
So we're using technology focused to enable a customer's program to succeed.
So if we started with the latter, if we started with what does innovation look like in your sector, I think just from those 4 examples, we would see that it could look like quite a broad landscape, right? There's quite a lot of different methodologies involved there, lots of different ideas, lots of entry points in. But if we look at how we would define innovation, that feels slightly more concrete. It felt like there was some kind of shared language, shared understandings around there. And I guess that what that shows us is that using shared definitions is actually not enough. Often when we kind of come together at the beginning of a project or a collaboration, we say, okay, we're going to define some things. Maybe they're set out in a contract or an MOU, or they're principles for collaboration. And we talk in terms of definitions. But actually, often that's not enough because of the layers of specificity and the potential for kind of misalignment, basically. And so what can be really useful with the ladder of abstraction is that it allows us, moving up and down, to get to the concrete more quickly. And we've seen there a kind of variety of assumptions, but we've also seen some more granular things to work with. So hopefully that's a tool that the next time you're embarking on such a kind of collaboration, you might refer back to and think, okay, how do we get down to the concrete more quickly and make sense of this? Thank you, everybody. I'll leave it there so that you can start to circulate a bit more and speak to some other people that